Scorpio. Pause. Just for a breath. Because something is moving behind the scenes, and the reason you haven't seen it yet isn't because you're blind. It's because it's happening in rooms you're not in. In whispers you can't overhear, in opinions forming quietly like storm clouds gathering far out at sea. People are discussing you. Not all of them. Not everywhere. But enough that the ripple is real. And if you're listening to this right now, it's because your intuition already felt the disturbance, like a subtle pressure in the air. Like your name being carried on a current you can't track. Scorpio, this isn't meant to make you suspicious. It's meant to make you sovereign. Because here's the truth no one teaches Scorpios early enough. You don't pass through people's lives like a passing car. You pass through like a myth. Like a turning point. Like a before and after. Even when you're quiet. Even when you think you're doing nothing. Your presence leaves fingerprints on the psyche. And people talk about what they can't forget. There are conversations happening about you that aren't even using your name. That's the part that would make most people uneasy, because it means you've become a reference point. This reminds me of what Scorpio did. This feels like that situation with Scorpio. I'm not making the same mistake I made with Scorpio. You're being used as an example, as a warning, as inspiration, as the standard that other people measure new situations against. On Scorpio, you don't control that. You never did. The moment you affect someone deeply, you surrender ownership of the story they will later tell about you. That's the price of being unforgettable. But let's go deeper, because the energy behind these discussions matters more than the words themselves. People are talking about you for three main reasons, and each one reveals more about them than it ever will about you. First, there's someone you hurt unintentionally. Not a dramatic betrayal. Not a movie scene. Something smaller, almost invisible to you. A comment. A look. A boundary you set without softening it. A silence that was self-protection for you, but felt like rejection to them. Scorpio, you're powerful in a way that even your casual moments can land like a thunderclap in someone else's inner world. To you, it was nothing. To them, it became a wound that refused to close. They've replayed it, edited it, turned it into a story. And now they're talking because they want an answer you never gave. Was it intentional? Was it cruelty? Was it indifference? White truth. The most dangerous thing isn't what you said. It's that you never knew it mattered. When people don't have closure, they create theories. And theories spread. Second, there's someone you helped more than you realize. You may have saved them with a single conversation. With one moment of being seen. With the quiet intensity of your presence when they were falling apart inside. And that person speaks about you with gratitude that feels almost sacred. Sometimes frighteningly intense, because you became light in a season they thought would end them. They talk about you like a symbol, proof that depth exists, that real people exist. That someone can look straight into your pain without flinching. Scorpio, the world is starving for that kind of presence. So yes, some talk about you with reverence, not gossip. Third, there's someone who desires you. Not the shallow, temporary kind. The deeper kind that makes them act strange. That leaks out through accidental glances, awkward silences, sudden defensiveness, obsessive curiosity. They imagine scenarios. They wonder what it would feel like to be chosen by you. They tell themselves it's ridiculous, complicated, impossible. And then they keep thinking anyway. And when they speak your name, it carries charge. That person is talking to sometimes as admiration, sometimes as longing, sometimes as frustration, because they can't figure you out. So yes, Scorpio people are discussing you. But now, we need to address the part that can twist your stomach. Some of these conversations are unfair, distorted, exaggerated. There are people building a version of you that does not match reality. A cold you, a crueler you, a more calculating you, a villain-shaped you. And that version is traveling. It's reaching ears of people who never met you. And they're forming opinions about you based on someone else's wound, someone else's jealousy, someone else's need to rewrite history in a way that makes them feel innocent. If you feel that surge inside you right now, anger, defensiveness, the urge to correct the narrative, breathe. Because that impulse is the trap. You cannot control what people say about you. You cannot step into every room where your name is spoken. You cannot rewrite every story that someone tells after they've edited you into the role they need you to play. The more you try to control perception, the more you become a prisoner of perception. Control becomes your comfort zone and also your cage. But there is something you can do, something real. You can decide who you are going to be from this moment forward, regardless of what they're saying, regardless of what they're projecting, regardless of the myths being built. Because the truth is, people don't see you. They see themselves through you. You are a mirror. And what they claim you are often reveals what they carry. If someone calls you cruel, ask quietly what part of them fears accountability. If someone calls you cold, ask what part of them expected access they never earned. If someone calls you dangerous, ask what part of them is terrified of their own shadow. If someone calls you a savior, ask what part of them was desperate for light. Their language is a fingerprint. Their opinion is a confession. Now, here's the layer that will feel personal, because it touches your identity. People who know you from different contexts are comparing notes. They're noticing you are not the same Scorpio everywhere. The Scorpio at work is not the Scorpio in love. The Scorpio with family is not the Scorpio with friends. And they're trying to solve which one is real. Scorpio, all of them are real. You adapt. You calibrate. You measure what the room can hold. With people who can handle depth, you offer depth. With people who only tolerate surface, you keep it light. With people who feel unsafe, you become guarded. With people who are sincere, you soften. That's not deception. That's emotional intelligence. That's survival. You learned early on that showing your full inner world to everyone is dangerous. But adaptation has a cost. After years of shifting, sometimes you start forgetting which version is your core. You become so skilled at being what the moment demands that you lose touch with who you are when nobody is watching. And that's why outside conversations can shake you, not just because they're unfair, but because they threaten the fragile question you don't like to admit: what if they see something I haven't fully defined in myself? So let me ask you something direct, Scorpio. Who are you when you're alone? Who are you in the moments no one will ever witness? In the choices no one will applaud? That is the only version that matters. That is the self you can't lose if you stay honest. And now, the shift. Something is happening that will bring information to you soon. Not in a dramatic Hollywood reveal, more like a thread you tug, and suddenly, the tapestry moves. In the coming days, you're likely to find something out. A casual comment that slips. An unexpected message. Someone who finally has the courage to tell you the truth. A conversation you weren't meant to hear, but the universe lets it brush past you anyway. And when you find out, you will have two options: react or respond. Reaction comes from wounded pride. Response comes from wisdom. Reaction creates drama. Response creates clarity. On Scorpio, you have done enough drama. Not because you're weak, because you're tired of carrying emotional wars that didn't deserve your energy. Let me paint it clearly. There's someone who admired you, maybe even idealized you. They put you on a pedestal and called it love, respect, fascination. Then they saw you be human. Contradict yourself. Make a mistake. They saw a side of you that didn't match the fantasy they built. Now they talk about you with disappointment, not because you became worse, but because their illusion collapsed. That's not your crime. You never asked to be idealized. And there's another person who always focused on your flaws. They criticized you, juged you, tried to shrink you. Lately, they've noticed you growing. They've seen you changing. And that bothers them, because if you can transform, it means they can too. They don't want that responsibility. So they talk about you to minimize your progress, to find cracks in your healing, to keep you small in their minds so they don't have to face their own stagnation. Do you see the pattern? People talk because of themselves. And understanding that frees you from personalization. It frees you from the reflex to chase reputation. It frees you from the exhausting job of trying to be understood by everyone. But there is one more thread here, the most important one. Someone specific has been rehearsing a conversation with you. For weeks, maybe longer. They've been waking up with your name in their head like an unfinished sentence. They've typed messages and deleted them. Picked up the phone and put it down. This person is torn. Half of them wants to speak. The other half fears your reaction. Because what they need to say is real. And real doesn't always feel gentle. Réel expose. Real deconstructs illusions. But real also heals. It could be an apology that has been trapped inside them for years. A truth they hid. A hurt they never named. A confession. Or a revelation about something you didn't know was happening behind your back. And Scorpio, when this moment arrives, you will be tested not by what they say, but by who you become as you listen. Because your old pattern is control. Your new path is clarity. So, if you feel the urge to investigate, to interrogate, to confront 10 people and find the source, pause. That path will drain you. It will turn you into a detective of shadows. Instead, choose the higher Scorpio power, centered observation. Qui est discernement. Strategic silence. Not the silence of fear, the silence of mastery. And now I'm going to say something that will sting for a second, then free you. You also talk about people. You also create narratives. You also interpret others through your own wounds sometimes. You've told your version of stories and conveniently omitted your part. You've turned someone into a villain because it felt safer than admitting you were also wrong. This isn't blame. It's truth, because when you realize everyone distorts reality to protect their ego, you stop taking other people's stories about you as divine law. And finally, Scorpio, the most important conversation isn't outside of you. It's inside of you. While you worry about what people are saying, there is a voice in your head that talks about you every day. It remembers every mistake. It criticizes your intensity. It questions your worth. It coach ornoenug. And that inner voice can be crueler than any rumor. So here is your real liberation. Become loyal to your truth. Not your image. Not your reputation. Your truth. When you are aligned, gossip becomes noise. When you know who you are, you don't need to defend yourself in every room. When your core is steady, other people's interpretations stop controlling your mood. And this message, this entire story, is not a command carved in stone. Not a prophecy designed to trap you in fear, but a mirror held up to a possible timeline, offered to your spirit like a lantern in fog. If it resonates, take what strengthens you and leave what doesn't. And if something in your real life requires support beyond spiritual reflection, choose the help that grounds you and protects you. Because your peace is sacred. Your nervous system is not a battlefield, and no conversation behind your back can define the person. So let them talk, Scorpio. Let them wonder. Let them misunderstand. Let them admire. Let them project. You don't need to chase every whisper to be powerful. You don't need to control the narrative to be sovereign. The universe didn't build you to be liked by everyone, it built you to be real. And real people always get talked about. Now step forward, not with paranoia, but with calm awareness.